Hi, Lucia. Okay, so about your question, I think I'm going to be able to find that here. All right. The resolution of distress associated with a traumatic memory. Okay, here's my experience from my studies over the last decade and my experience. Um, here's how I see where this is quite capable for a TRE provider to step into. Um, and one of the things that David does teach us and should be kind of along the lines as from any provider trainer, and that is that when memories or emotions begin to get too intense, we back off, right? I mean, that's part of our training. And there's how do I say this? So there is in that regard a definite place for what we call the self-regulation. But what that allows for is for the body to do the work itself. So here's how I see this. All right. Some of our memories, and I remember when I was practicing for a workshop we were going to do, and I got onto a flow. So I'm practicing this stuff. And what I said was, we spend a lot of energy, and I was referring to firefighters because that's who I was presenting to. Um, because we have all these memories out here, right? And we spend a lot of energy trying to keep them all at bay. Somehow, some way, shape, or form, we're trying to, and some of them are successfully suppressed, some of them are not, but they're like jagged rocks. So that's, I picture them as having spikes on them. And you certainly don't want to get hit by something like that. Anyway, that's how I picture them. They're all at bay. And what's happening in TRE is all of these memories are actually getting closer to us because within us, as we complete and discharge, is what tremoring is doing. It's taking the sharpness of the stone and polishing it in a sense. So it's rubbing it off. Now, what that means is that because we have a memory, that memory it has body connections, it has emotional connections, and those things go along with the memory itself. And that's what makes them hard to talk about. I can do nothing about the fact that it's a memory. I still remember the times I was sexually abused. I don't remember my mom's emotional neglect so much. I feel that more, but that's because at a certain point in time, when you're an infant, there are no words in your brain. It's all sensation. And so all of this stuff gets carried forward until we have words and then even abstract thoughts, which could be 8 years of age. Well, okay, that stuff begins to form. What I can feel, though, is that void. So, anyway, there are these memories. And as we tremor and complete and discharge, it polishes those really rough stones, and our body begins to feel safe and to relax. So, what we're finally doing is putting our arms down. Because what ends up happening is with traumatic memory, oftentimes, according to Peter Levine, it's stuck in the implicit memory. This is the way life is, as opposed to explicit memory. This is what happened to me on such and such a day at such and such time. There's a difference between those two. I just recently bought a bike. I didn't have to know how to learn how to ride it again because that's in my implicit memory, just like walking. So, but the buying of the bike is an explicit memory. I bought it on such and such a day. It wasn't too long ago. Anyway, excuse me. As these memories get polished by tremoring, they will take place and move from the implicit to the, and I'm yeah, where I don't know, but they move from file A implicit to file B explicit. Now that means that that particular memory is no longer the way things are. That's pretty simple. That's what tremoring does. It allows you, as you tremor, you complete and discharge, which means that since uh, the stress cycle is a cycle, it's supposed to have a clear beginning and a clear end. And the end, as we know, is the resetting of the diaphragm and the tremoring. And to the extent that we didn't do any of that, we didn't do any of the physical component of fight or flight, I think there's more tremoring that needs to be involved. But that's what the body starts to do. And as it's creating this capacity and resilience by finally discharging stuff out of the body, it begins to complete those cycles. And as it completes those cycles, in between those sessions, then the body is allowed then to metabolize these experiences. Because think about what happens under the, because really trauma is just a whole lot of unaddressed stress cycles. According to Peter Levine, I don't think David would argue with that at all. Trauma is not an event. Trauma is what has happened to us because of this stress that we went through that never got completed. Had we completed it, no trauma. Part of the reason why David's website is called Trauma Prevention. That's the beautiful part about that. So we have all these memories that are in our past, and they are laden with emotion. And as the tremoring, and that's what those spikes are. We fear being close to those because A, they hurt. We don't like to bring them up because we choke up. We can't talk. And that all gets polished off. It takes place in our memory where it belongs. And then I can talk about those things if I need to. We're storytelling people. So if I'm in a session with somebody and they want to talk, I do not need a license to hear somebody. I don't have to have a license to show empathy, to show compassion, to validate their experience, to witness their life. I don't need any of that. Nobody has to give me permission for that. They can do that on Facebook all day long for people who don't know how to listen, and that's completely fine. As a TRE provider, I can still offer hearing, but yes, if somebody were to say, I'm going to say, yeah, that's what it means to heal. That means you're symptom free. All those little spiky things that are on these stones in our memories, those make up a lot of the symptoms of trauma. It ruins our ability in relationships. We have fear, we have hyperactivity, we have all kinds of things because of these emotion laden things. And if I'm going to say I'm healed, then that means that A, the emotional part of me got healed, the somatic part of me got healed, the cognitive part of me got healed, the social part of me got healed, the spiritual part of me got healed. And that's what I think ends up happening if you have an attentive TRE provider who is with you long enough to get it done. And that's why my program is a year long. But in terms of memory, yeah, because you don't need to have her talk about it to lead her through a session. I have people focus on their body. You know how many times David has talked about, with soldiers, he has them, do something on their, that part of the reason he does that is for that reason. Because some of that stuff might be right there at the surface. And that's where regulating comes into play. Because if they start tremoring and all of a sudden something pops up, that 7 to 10 that we use for the physical exercises to generate the tremor, I use that same thing with any kind of emotional intensity. If we get near a 7, and depending on A, the person, and B, the where we're at in our client relationship, I might cut that off at 5 or just, okay, we're done immediately. I don't care about the intensity. And for most people, and then you'll have some who just say, I just want this shit out of my body. Cool. I would still recommend, okay, we're just going to take this so far and see what happens. And then we might have to regulate and come back to this, the whole pendulation thing. Okay. So the one woman, she wanted it out. I said, okay, go for it. And she did. Now, because I changed my program afterwards, I don't know anything about what happened to her long term. It's one of the ones that kind of bugs me about that. But anyway, then once those stones are polished in the back of here, they don't have that emotional impact anymore because the body has resolved that. That's the thing that's wonderful about healing, is that because those aspects of us are still stuck on that particular experience, the tremoring actually heals that. So when it's there in my explicit memory, I might have regrets, I might have a little bit twinge here and there of different emotion, but okay, it's part of my story. What can I do about it? I need to own it. So resolve, yeah, it'll resolve. It might take some time. You might not have to be with her for a while, and that's okay. Just let her know that. And don't even focus on it unless you absolutely have to. Just focus on something else. All right. I hope that helps. If you have questions, you can get a hold of me, let me know, and we'll talk about it. Okay. Bye.